James Dorsey, he's a Middle East analyst. He's a senior fellow at the S. Rajaratnam School for International Studies and joins us from Singapore. James Dorsey, thank you very much for joining us. Look, the big question here is who's to be believed? Are these security concerns, as alleged by the United States and Saudi Arabia, to be believed, or is it more a case of Washington and Riyadh seemingly drawing up what looks like a criminal profile and then pointing to Tehran and say, look, the profile fits?
I don't doubt that there are security concerns. I think the problem is the interpretation of those and how seriously or qualitatively different they are from the situation as it existed a couple of weeks ago. I furthermore don't think that the major players, being Trump, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, that I don't believe that they want to have a full-fledged war. They may want a punitive strike. The problem is twofold. One is within the military buildup that we're seeing and the increased tension, an accident could happen and that could spiral out of control. And second of all, if indeed there were a surgical or punitive strike, that too could escalate.
What would be any sort of motivation for Tehran to take this any further? Just a few days ago, Hassan Rouhani, Iran's president, made an absolutely incredible admission to the people of the country, talking about unity in the face of unprecedented economic pressure. He seemed to be saying to the people, if we don't suffer together, the Islamic Revolution is under threat. Under those sort of circumstances, what motivation could Iran possibly have for increasing any sort of tensions?
I don't think that Iran has the motivation to escalate this. If anything, I would think that it's Iran's interest to de-escalate this. Having said that, it's not going to happen on President Trump's terms. With other words, Iran is not simply going to pick up the telephone and phone Washington and say, let's resolve this. I think what you're seeing in terms of Iranian measures is reactive. It's responding to, but it's not, those are not measures that are designed for Iran to take the first step that would lead to a military escalation.
We have a contest between those two nations, Iran and Saudi Arabia, to see whether the Shia version of Islam should prevail over the Sunni version of Islam as pushed by Riyadh. Can either Saudi Arabia or Iran, either of them, be trusted as a promoter of peace in the Middle East?
Frankly, first of all, I don't think this has anything to do with division between Sunni and Shiite Muslims. I think this has to do purely with geopolitics, with regime survival, with regional influence. It just so happens that the Saudis are predominantly Sunnis and the Iranians are predominantly Shias. I also don't think that either of these two countries are uninterested parties. They both are basically trying to spin the reality in their favor. And what you really need is an independent go-between. Obviously, the United States no longer qualifies for that.
James Dorsey, always, we appreciate your contributions to TRT World. Thanks a lot.